Welcome to another episode of Destiny Item Trivia with your host, Unisys12. This week, I would like to discuss with everyone a story that just blew me away when I began to research the namesake of the weapon we are about to discuss. It's just one of the many stories that I feel helped inspire the strong female presence we see in the game of Destiny. The weapon in question is the Hakke Rasokva-A. Now, like the Kvastov, sadly, I don't have this weapon, nor do I know anyone that currently owns it or uses it on a regular basis, although I'm quite sure someone does. It is obtainable from running strikes, supposedly. I spent several hours doing this, but none dropped for me. So, as a comparison, if you pre-ordered TTK, you would have access to a set of Suros and Hakke weapons at the Vanguard Quartermaster. Here, Ronnie 5530 sells the Hakke Hotspur A. If you do not have access to these weapons, you can pick up any of Banshee's Hakke Test A pulse rifles and get about as close as possible to the Rasokva-A in terms of feel. The Rasokva-A, like the Hotspur, is an uncommon green pulse rifle. It has a rate of fire of 66 and impact of 16, which puts it in the archetype pulse that I use throughout House of Wolves, pretty similar to the 55A All Fate. But the Rasokva is much less stable, so don't go spending hours running Vanguard strikes and then come back to me complaining that this weapon is junk. We are not here to do a weapon review, but I do feel it is important to know the archetype of the weapon we are discussing as well as where it fits into the progression system of the game, because after all, these weapons and items do tell a story, or at the very least help paint a picture that is the world of Destiny. The Hakke Rasokva-A is named after Marina Mikhailova Raskova, born March 28, 1912 in Moscow, Russia. Her father was an operatic singer and instructor, and her mother was a school teacher. Both her parents wanted Raskova to become a musician, while she herself wanted to pursue a career as an operatic singer, much like her father. But, as with all things in life, try as hard as you like, sometimes your destiny overrules your dreams and ambitions. That kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it? In the end, because of the pressure she put on herself to become a better opera singer, the stress became too much. So she gave up music and began to study chemistry in high school. Once she graduated, she went to work in a dye factory as a chemist until she met her husband, Sergei Raskov, from whence her last name comes. From here, she started work in the Aeronavigation Laboratory of the Air Force Academy as a draftswoman. And this is where things really start to take off for her. Sorry, no pun intended. By 1933, she became the first female navigator of the Soviet Air Force. A year later, she began teaching at the Zhukovsky Air Academy, also a first. Quickly reaching celebrity status, she set a number of aeronautical long-distance records between 1937 and 1938, all the while still teaching at the academy. On one of these record runs, she had to parachute out before the aircraft landed. It took her 10 days to find her way back to the plane without an emergency kit, no water, and almost no food. But she did manage to find her way back to her crew and back home, where herself and the other two women that made the flight with her were awarded the Hero of the Soviet Union Award. They were the first females to ever receive this award. As cool as all that sounds, to be honest, this just sets the stage for what was to come for Raskova. After World War II broke out, female applications to serve were typically blocked as long as possible. This was mainly to discourage them from entering the fight. But Raskova would have nothing to do with this. Using her connections to Joseph Stalin, she convinced him to form 3 combat regiments made up completely of women, simply by giving a speech on September 8, 1941, calling for women pilots to be allowed to fight. 1 month later, Stalin ordered the formation of the all-female 221st Aviation Corps. The 3 regiments were formally designated as follows: the 586th Fighter Aviation Regiment, the 46th Tamarind Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, the 125th Guards Bomber Aviation Regiment. Rasokva herself commanded this unit. The 125th flew 1,134 missions, dropping over 980 tons of bombs on German troops as they pushed into Russia during World War II. They did this primarily at night, using rudimentary navigation tech, if any at all, which explains the flavor text of the weapon. The terror of the night, the strike from the shadows. During this time of the war, not even male regiments flew at night unless they absolutely had to. This alone says a lot about the strength, bravery, and skill of all the women that made up the 221st Aviation Corps. Sadly, Marina Rasokva died when she was trying to force land her plane on the Volga Bank on January 4th, 1943. I wanted to share the story of Marina Rasokva with you because her story, along with many others that I hope to cover in future videos, help paint us a picture of the many women that we interact with in-game or read about in the grimoire or the flavor text of weapons and items. Women in the world of Destiny are skilled, strong, brave, and most of all, honorable. I admire Bungie for how they portray women in the world of Destiny and wish more developers would do the same. In the future, I will cover a few more examples, but until then, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Destiny Item Trivia with your host, Unisys12. You can find me on Twitter at Unisys12 as well as in a Focus Fire chat room somewhere on their Discord server. Until next time, keep your arrows sharp, your sights clear, and your code clean.